Well, welcome to a new episode on Delighted.tv, and today I have a very special guest who not only has been spreading delight but has engineered delight for the last 12 years as the founder of xoxoDay. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pinkesh. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just jump straight into it. I know you've worked at some amazing brands like Yahoo and Flipkart, and now the founder at xoxoDay. One of the things that strikes me about Manoj is you've worked in a lot of brands where delight has been almost like the centerpiece of what that brand did for their end customers. And so a lot of people define delight in different ways, in their own contextual ways. What's your definition of delight?
Yeah, I mean, delight is definitely very contextual. Sometimes it's like the state of your mind.
Yeah.
So my delight maybe yesterday is different from my delight today. But yeah, something which remains very constant for me is I get delighted when there is high quality, when there is authenticity or genuineness to the product or the service I'm consuming, and something which is as low friction as possible.
Interesting.
So I think these are three areas which really delight me.
Kind of the attributes of delight.
Whatever I consume, I typically try to find these things.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that every product leader, every creator, every entrepreneur aspires is that they want their products and services to deliver delight to their end customers. But sometimes they don't know how to engineer that in the construction of that product or service design. With your experiments of what you've done at xoxoDay, which is in the business of helping others create more delight with rewards and recognition, can you maybe point out some good examples that has worked very well in the experiments that you've done for your hundreds of customers, and maybe some that you thought were going to delight but actually ended up not being as delighter as much as you thought?
Yeah. So when you start a product, and then these are mistakes which we have also done. You tend to take an opinionated call that okay, this is what might delight my customers, and this is the fallacy of product teams most of the times, that they somehow fall in love with what they are building. And this is also a trap which we also fell in the early years, where we took a call, we started building it, and the product guys fell in love with what they were building, and somehow they missed talking to the customer, talking to the cohorts of customer. And while we were able to delight one set of users, but we found that we are not able to win a lot of deals. So then we went back to the boardroom and then identified that okay, what is going wrong? And that is where I think one of the best insights which we could ever get in B2B products is what we got. So typically in B2B what happens is there are sometimes two sets of users. One is the person who is buying your product or who is considering your product, which is a cohort of people. And then there is the end user.
Absolutely.
So in our case, for different products we have different buyers. So for example, if I talk about our product which is Impulse, which is an HR tech product, the buyer is a senior HR or a CHRO, but the user is the employee. So we were earlier optimizing only for the employee.
For that one persona.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the one persona was happy, but that is not the persona who is giving me dollars.
Absolutely, was writing the checks. Right.
So we were kind of confused that okay, while the users are happy, why are people not buying from us? And then we realized that we have completely missed out talking to the buyer persona, which is when the product team started talking to the buyers. They started getting into the sales calls, and that is when we realized that we need to have two different product strategies for each of these buyers, because the end user is looking for a frictionless, low cognitive load kind of an experience. Whereas the buyer, he is looking for something which is extremely configurable for an enterprise setup.
Flexible,
where they can do so many settings, etc., because they have so many org rules and policies to kind of manage. And once we started building for this persona,
Yeah.
I mean, everything changed. We found
Very
that
nice.
yes, I mean, now both the personas are getting happy,
Yeah.
and we could delight both the personas together.
That's a very interesting observation. And sometimes when we hear the word delight, a lot of our speakers, even on this podcast series, have talked about their experiences, their examples, which are usually more consumer focused versus B2B. I'm so glad you picked up the B2B thread. Would you say then that because there are multiple personas that you need to worry about as a stakeholder in a B2B, the construction of delight, the effort to engineer delight is double, triple than consumers' space, would you say?
Yeah, so the consumer space, you typically can define your cohort, and you can just optimize your product for that cohort again and again and again. And most of the times you are kind of taking the decision and then the consumer is using it. But when it comes to B2B, as you mentioned, I mean, there are multiple cohorts, and you can't just build it for one cohort. Because if you end up building it for one cohort, you may displease somebody else.
So whatever you do is kind of you multiply that by two from an
Yes.
effort perspective,
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
thinking perspective. Got it.
And then it not only starts from the product, but it goes a little more beyond
Yeah.
product, where say a customer might be expecting something which is a private cloud, not a cloud, public cloud, which is not something which a B2C consumer will
Correct,
ask you.
correct,
So those are those subtle things which we have
To factor
manage.
in. Yeah. One of the things that a lot of delight creators who manage to create delight are now puzzled with: how do I measure delight? What is the right metric to know whether what we've built, whether what we've designed, what we've delivered, we know that it's delighting some customers, but what are some of the metrics? Generally, people talk about NPS as a leading indicator. Are there any specific metrics that, in your opinion, should be measured by every creator of delight to say, now is the time to know whether your work on delight has actually meaningfully resulted into something? What would that be for you?
Yeah, so see, one of the best frameworks to measure delight for any customer, whether it is software or maybe any non-software product, is the Pirate metrics, also known as AAA, triple R metrics, which gives you a very methodical way of defining and measuring delight. Starts from your user adoption, activation, acquisition, and then your retention, revenue, and referral. So if you start measuring right from acquisition till referral, you are moving from the earliest or the lowest level of delight to the highest level of delight. And your pinnacle of success and delight is when your customer is raving about you or is
Absolutely.
referring
Yeah.
you without
Becomes
even-
your unsolicited
Yeah.
evangelist.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes.
that's the true
Yeah.
sign of a good delight,
Yeah.
right? Would you say then the number of such referrals or the number of people referring could be a good metric for
Yeah,
delight?
referring and NPS, I mean, is a good measure. But I mean, when you are building a product, you may not reach to referral directly. I mean, you have to take one step at a time. So maybe the first can be the first A, which is your acquisition. Is your acquisition delightful? Then is your adoption delightful?
Got
And then
it.
your activation, and then
Look at the full
retention.
suite.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the full suite is required because you can't jump to directly to referral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go a little bit deeper on the metric side. A lot of people have to spend, a lot of creators have to spend a lot of time, energy, and money to even engineer this delight because it's not free.
Yeah.
Giving away that extra dessert in a food delivery order that delights, or having a hotel room leave a box of chocolates for you when you come in. These are great gestures, but they also cost. They also are an investment that one has to judiciously make. How would you say you measure the quantification impact of doing all these things? So let's say you've got a delighted customer. How do you now go back and tell the business that, look, because of all these things that we've invested in, is generating X dollars more, or the goodwill? Like, how do you measure the impact of
Yeah.
delighted customer?
So there is this famous quote, right, where it says that delight is remembered when price is forgotten.
Ah,
So
I like
I
that.
think delight is something which stays with you. I mean, it kind of stays, and then it becomes a talking point. So if you start measuring, let's say at a financial level, if you start measuring the impact of delight, one is you can measure at a product level, but it goes beyond product. It actually impacts your
Yeah.
financials,
And I like that.
where you can actually see that you are able to reduce CAC,
Yeah.
you are able to improve your LTVs,
Yeah.
you are able to upsell and cross sell, and I
Yeah.
think that is what businesses want.
Those are amazing outcome impact metrics for
Yeah.
one to measure and go back and prove to the teams that look, because of this extra effort, we were able to generate so much more business growth, right?
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. I'm going to switch maybe gears a little bit and ask you a little bit maybe on the personal experience of what you've experienced with another B2B company or another B2B service that you've consumed. Anything that strikes you and says, going back to that memorability, that you forgot the product, maybe you forgot the price to your point, but you still remember the delight. Any examples that that you kind of strikes your mind
Yeah.
of somebody else delighting you?
Yeah, so in consumer we get a lot of these examples, but definitely yes in B2B as well. So one of my favorite products when it comes to B2B is the entire G Suite, the Google Suite, because your your entire life in an office works on so many things, and G Suite kind of takes care of all of these complexities in a beautiful way. And every service of Google Suite is kind of so very integrated with each other. So you never know when you are shifting from a email to a chat to a video call to a notes, and then along with AI they have made it so very easy for everyone. So that is one great example. The second one I would say is HubSpot, where if you are into a sales or marketing ops kind of a function, HubSpot has kind of really nailed down the user problem, managing the CRM and then going beyond the CRM in such a easy way. And CRM is a very complex software, but despite that, HubSpot has kind of really killed the way they have done it, and it works well for small companies. It works well for enterprise companies.
And if you were to dissect that HubSpot example, is it the price to performance ratio that's exciting you? It's the user experience design and the easy fluidity of the flow that they've designed on how you interact with the software? Is it the customer service when there is a problem? Like, if you were to further dissect what is contributing to that biggest delight for you in this example, where would you attribute that to?
I think it is a mix of all, but one area where HubSpot has been really good is that typically people are afraid of using enterprise softwares. So, for example, if you talk about SAP or Salesforce, I mean, without any disrespect to these softwares, typically there is some resistance that, oh, I have to use SAP, I have to use Oracle, I have to use Salesforce, because there is some sort of an inertia which they have created because of the way they have built the software, the UI, UX, and everything. And HubSpot has taken a very different route that, okay, I am built for you guys.
I see.
If you are a company with 5 employees, you will find it easy to use me. If you are a company with, let's say, 5,000 employees, again, you will find it easy to use me. So I think they have reduced that barrier of adoption, and then they are with you for every single problem statement.
Absolutely.
Easy to reach. Easy to kind of get answers.
You could almost say that delight is the differentiator then for companies like HubSpot, where the incumbents were so large and had so much more capabilities and features perhaps, but because of the way that they were able to delight the customer, people are still talking about them as opposed to the larger enterprise play that others had. That's fascinating. You know, while it's a very emotional topic and sometimes it's subjective to use the word delight, I'd like to, as a practitioner, maybe get help from you to say, what is that one thing or two things that everybody should do as a prescriptive guidance that they can use to engineer delight in their product or services? What would your advice be?
Yeah. So, see, the first thing which I will talk about is that every product and every target audience has a different context for delight, which we discussed in the first question, I guess. So, one is, don't try to copy the delight of one product, and just that the delight worked for them, it works for you, doesn't. That is not how it works. So you have to find your delight by talking to your customer, finding their problem statements, and then uniquely solving for them. So that is number one. And the second is, I think the world of products is very dynamic these days. I mean, it's not like those 2 decades back that, okay, you have built it and then the delight will stay for 10 years. Today, the delight changes almost every year.
Faster, yeah.
So you have to constantly innovate to add delight. For example, everyone is proactively expecting AI related features in your product today, which was not the case maybe 4 years back.
Yeah.
Nobody was asking AI
Absolutely,
features. So, so while your product may have been supremely delightful till 2023,
That's right.
but that entire delight might be kind of captured by your competitor if you don't add what is working in the market today.
So the speed of refresh, you're saying, is much higher expectations now than maybe even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because thanks to AI, the speed with which others are now producing the higher bar of delight is something you have to catch up and keep up with. Super. So that's Manoj with years of his wisdom on how to engineer delight, and super excited, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Pinkesh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super.